Welcome, everyone, to Mind Shifters Radio. Today is the last day of April, Wednesday, April the 30th. And just delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation as we look deeper and deeper into the impact of the first century Aramaic technology of forgiveness, and then to recognize that that technology is applied in many different areas. And so I'm going to just run a little test here with Jeannie for 1 second, if that works all right. And we'll be continuing into the. All right. Uh, Technology of forgiveness is the first century Aramaic language, and the power person dynamic comes out of the codependence to interdependence dynamic. And so let's just do a quick review of what we covered. Hopefully, you've got your worksheet in front of you from yesterday, where you made a list of everyone who has ever offended you. If you're new to the show, then you might want to grab a piece of paper and make these four lists. First list is everyone who has ever offended you. The second list is the nature of their offense. The third list is your punishment thought. The fourth list is your advice to them. What's the advice you have for each of those persons on your list? And the request here, as I said the other day, go to hell is not advice. The request is that you tap into and you offer the deepest, most sincere input around this issue that you have when your mind is connected to love, really honoring and cherishing that person. Now, there may be all kinds of stuff toward them, but step out of that for a moment and offer them really true, sincere advice from your heart around that situation. And so you've got a worksheet with those four sections filled out. And then you'll recall we talked about the propeller parable, that the man standing on the pavement, a man from the jungles who's never seen anything more complex than a dugout canoe, looks at the propeller rotating on the airplane, but he does four arms spinning around a pivot point. He sees a shiny silver disc. And you'll remember we pointed out, where does the shiny silver disc that he sees come from? It comes from his mind. And once you recognize that parable in your own life, the man who's looking at the shiny silver disc is looking at a perceptual construct of his mind. Everyone on your list that you've named who have ever, quote unquote, offended you, they show up in your mind as constructs much like the shiny silver disc. And when we live in denial and dissociation, the person who can resonate what it is that we don't want to deal with, we literally use that data to build a false picture of them. The data that holds our unresolved pain resonated by the other is literally projected into our brain's image of them. So they show up with our problem attached. So where does the pained perceptual construct that you're looking at when you're in a codependent relationship come from? It comes from your mind. And once somebody violates a goal that you hold for your power person, a serious goal, you notice, remember we talked about the honeymoon is over. So I'm in relationship with someone and it's wonderful, and one day the honeymoon is over. What happened to cause the honeymoon to be over? They violated a goal I held for my power person, an important goal. And when that happened, what took place is I wired my brain's image of them into my power person file. So now they are part and parcel of that power person file. Where's the shiny silver disc come from the man standing on the tarmac? His mind. Where does your pain perception come from? Your mind. And what you're dealing with is relationship substitution. So remember that the body, what we call a body, is just a vignette played out in the mind. We quoted Einstein, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. A body is an optical delusion. If you think you've got a body, let's listen to Einstein once again. Quote, on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibration has been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter, Einstein says. So the shiny silver disc doesn't exist. There is a propeller there, yes. The shiny silver disc that doesn't exist comes from the mind. The body that doesn't exist, the thing that appears like a body. Well, but Michael, I touch it. It's got to be a body. No, that's very poor reasoning. You got to know more about your mind before you can reason to that conclusion. And when you know how this energy system works, this energy system called life works, then you recognize that everything that shows up in the perceptual mind is a reflection of the content of the mind, and that the purpose of this thing called perception is to reflect the content that we hold based on the purpose we give life at any given moment. So I think I finished off the other day or yesterday with the idea of if you need somebody to blame, boy, carbon-based memory is going to show you that there's somebody to blame. There will always be, every time you're in pain, trauma, turmoil, there will always be somebody else. Remember, this is the membership card we were all given. We were all brainwashed deeply into this by the age of 4, probably earlier. I was talking to a young lady today who was telling me about an interaction with her daughter, got into a really great space with her, and the next day feeling terrible about it. And it was like, well, what's wrong? We had a great day. Oh, well, nothing's wrong. You had a wonderful day and you hit a new level of vitality. So now you're able to access deeper levels of your own mind. And what did you do? You went right back to a memory of a 3-year-old and the pain of a 3-year-old. That's not a problem. That's a healing. Hit a new level of vitality, and the next level of what needs to be healed is going to show up. And when you shift the purpose of your body-mind unit, what you call your body-mind unit, the real purpose of it is to embody life. And life is not about you. Your life is not about you. Your life is about life. And what is life? Life is love flowing through a cell. If you make your life about not your ego self, how much money do I have, how much power do I have, how much fame do I have, how much do people respect me, on and on and on. If you make your life about what do I need to do to optimize the flow of love through my cellular structure, my individuated, expression of life. What do I need to do? Make that your purpose, and everything will change. And then follow up. And if you shift the purpose of every relationship to one of showing you the truth, to showing you what you're holding on to support you in healing, then every relationship becomes, when something less than love comes up, becomes a healing opportunity rather than an opportunity to project. And in our culture, we've been taught a hypnotic lie about the world, that we're separate people. And again, listen to Einstein. If you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. Yes, your mind has been given thoughts of you're over there and I'm over here. So what does your mind do? As it is designed to do, it converts those thoughts to pictures. And it creates this picture that you're over there and I'm over here. And now, as Einstein describes it, we're living in an optical delusion. When you shift the purpose of every relationship to showing you the truth and bring you healing, everything will change. However, you are going to have to give up your membership card in the one world universal religion of blame. You're going to have to step into and take responsibility. Now, those who've been brainwashed into this religion, the word responsibility means blame. Oh, you're telling me I'm responsible for this, so I'm to blame. It's my fault. I'm the guilty party. No. Notice there's nothing in the word responsibility about blame, guilt, or fault. Well, but you said I was wrong. It was my fault. No. I asked you to take responsibility for the energetic patterns that are moving within you. And when you do, you'll begin to move in the direction where you end your codependent relationships. However, you will be codependent as long as you hold one painful reality in your mind that you're unwilling to be responsible for. Now, how can you tell if you're still holding on to one? Are you still capable of any form of hostility or fear? Can somebody kick you in the limitation? Hostility and fear are not what you've been taught they are. They're not the markers that somebody out there has a problem. They're markers that there is an energy in you that is based in corrupt data and doesn't belong in you. And as long as you hold that energy within you, you literally set up an energy field that sooner or later attracts someone to kick you right square in the limitation to show you what you're holding on to. Let's give an example. There's a cute story I'd like to share in this workshop. It's called Happy Anniversary. Ray was in trouble. He forgot his wedding anniversary. His wife, Kathy, was really angry. She told him in no uncertain terms, tomorrow morning I expect to find a gift in the driveway that goes from 0 to 200 in less than 6 seconds, and it better be there. The next morning, Ray got up early and left for work. When his wife woke up, she looked out the window, and sure enough, there was a wrapped but rather small gift box in the middle of the driveway. Confused, she put on a robe and ran out to the driveway and brought the box back in the house. She opened it, and there she found a brand new bathroom scale. Ray has been missing since Friday. Anytime that we live in any form of blame, we lock ourselves out of the truth. And the way you end codependency, look at your list, and if you've just done a quick list, I'm going to ask you to literally go back through your whole life to every situation. The woman that I was speaking of a few minutes ago had this wonderful birthday celebration with her daughter. Next day, trauma, has a memory of the child of 3. The name of the person that was involved in that trauma for that child of 3 needs to be on your list. If you've got a memory of something at 3, because the mind doesn't forget. And the way you end codependency is when you feel good about crossing out every name on that list and substituting your own, and building relationship instead of out of these power person dynamics, building relationship out of original being, which means that you have to heal original resentment within you. To do this, you must wake up to your own human life, your own human beingness. So while our Healing Through Relationships workshop and Codependence workshop seem like they're about relationships, they're really not about relationships at all. This workshop is about you, what you confront, what your mind feeds you and tells you is about somebody else. is your mind's lie, and it's your work. So you can build relationship out of original being, or you can play the addiction game. And in this work, my definition for addiction is that addiction is the compulsive use of any person, circumstance, substance, or activity to keep from hearing, feeling, and following your highest guidance, and or to keep from feeling what's real for you and communicating about it or dealing with it. So the fastest way there is on planet Earth to jump into a codependent relationship is to allow the drug hostility to take hold, to take root in your structure. That's the fastest way to play out that codependent dynamic. And hostility is not an emotion, it's a drug that people use, and using that drug as a signal that that person wants somebody else to be responsible for their reality and keep their own fear hidden. So if you're going to end codependence, you're going to have to face and stop being a user of the drug hostility. It's a giant and important piece of work to do. So going back to, and if you're in a relationship where you're already at the point where you've said the honeymoon is over, then know that you're probably in the power person's file of your partner, and you've probably got your partner in your power person file. That, remember we did a show on that last week. It's called relationship substitution. Why, when you say the honeymoon is over, why is it that your partner can give you the look and so much hell breaks loose in you that it's almost unbearable? Well, number one, it's because there's that level of hell in you. And number two, you've hooked them into your brain's image of your power person. And every time that file is resonated into activity, I mean, the body that shows up in your mind looks like the person you're in relationship with, but all of the emotional baggage and the clothes you dress them in are the unresolved dynamics of the power person. So why is it so intensely and instantly painful? Because you're back in a full-blown relationship with your power person. You're not, once you say the honeymoon is over, you're not in a relationship with that person. You're in relationship with your power person again. And that means you have to do your work if you're ever going to get free of it. So life and relationship are designed to be an original creation, not a reproduction of the power person dynamics from the past, which is where most people live. And that original creation has to come from being. Most people, however, live their relationships from the outside, i.e., they're controlled by somebody or something out there. They're lived from carbon-based memory. Whatever's stored within the body's mind is what runs a person's life. And that's where, yes, that was the state that Yeshua was referring to as, in that one conversation with the man who said, I have to go, bury my mother and father before I follow you. He said, let the dead bury the dead, let the blind lead the blind. If you're living from carbon-based memory, you're living in the replicate mind, and all the replicate mind can do is replicate whatever's stored in it from the past. If awesome, wondrous, joyful, enlivening, fun, sweet relationship isn't in your carbon-based memory system, i.e., if that's not where your parents and your grandparents and their parents and their parents and their parents live, then you got work to do. And it's a dual process now. You've got to forgive. You've got to face and forgive what's already stored in carbon-based memory. And then you have to originate your life and your relationship from being. So that's the third place, relationship. And that's the only place that an original creation instead of a reproduction of relationship can happen. So that giving up the addiction to hostility is a mega major step. It's probably the most difficult drug to break free from. Why? Because the pain is so deep. There was a French writer who wrote, "Men rage where they would elsewise weep." All rage is cover for pain and tears. And as with hostility, any drug that people use puts a person into an insane, loveless world. Now, this is the world of perception, and that's where most people live. They don't even know that there's any other option to be had. So using a drug means I'm now in a world that's not connected to actuality. I'm in a world that is sourced from my own carbon-based memory, and that world that I exist in or seem to exist in truthfully only exists between my ears. And I'm going to have to do the work of dismantling that. How intense is that work going to be? Well, if you look at, let's take a quick look at your generations. Let's imagine we do a meter of joy. And the meter goes from 1 to 10. 1 means life is the pits. There's nothing to be joyful about. 10 means I am in aliveness and excitement 100% of the time. If you were to categorize mom and dad, what level on that scale, 1 to 10, or maybe spread it out so there's a little more flexibility. Let's go 1 to 100. On a scale of 1 to 100, 1 being no joy, depression, pain, trauma, 100 being absolute aliveness and excitement. If you put mom on that scale, where would you rate her life? What did she live at? A 1, a 2, a 10, a 50, 100? What did dad live at? Then, from what you know of your grandparents, if you looked at mom and dad, on a scale of 1 to 100, where did they live? Mom's mom, scale of 1 to 100. Mom's dad, 1 to 100. Dad's mom, 1 to 100. Dad's dad, 1 to 100. From the stories you've heard of your grandparents, where did they live? If you went back and you did that assessment, and the people that you didn't know, you talked to others to find out. Let's say if you looked at that overall and you averaged them on a scale of 1 to 100, and the average of those predecessors came out at, let's say, a 40, then probably if you did an honest assessment of your life, you probably live at about a 40, because that's what carbon-based memory does. Remember, energetically, your body-mind unit is a device that stores every energetic frequency that comes to it and stores it holographically in every cell in your structure, including the sperm and the egg. And that runs the show for anyone who has been brainwashed into the one world universal religion of blame and victimhood. And of course, hostility is just right up there with it. So once again, when any drug is used, people enter into an insane, loveless world. Hostility, like every other drug, distorts perception and anesthetizes us. It is literally an anesthetic. It literally has us living in a world that is totally a perceptual construct, a picture world that's totally based in corrupt data. That world does not exist except as a projection from the content of one's own brain cell structure. And the person who's in that hostility game, lives in the one world universal religion of blame, they have this false treasure, this weak treasure to protect. And each person will be, in terms of the non-being mind, until they wake up, in terms of one non-being mind, each person will be precisely defined by their own power person dynamics. And you've got to rise above that past if you're ever actually going to claim and live from a human life. If there is any dynamic in your unconscious that you refuse to come into conscious relationship with, that dynamic is going to run your life. Notice, life is relentless. Life's purpose is to kick us in limitation. Life's purpose is life, and life is love flowing through itself. If there's anything that you do that inhibits your life from flowing through yourself, life wants to flow through you. If there's anything you do to restrict that, then life says, oh, you're going to hide that from yourself and you're going to pretend that's not there and you're going to blame somebody else. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you a whole procession of people. I am structured, says life, through resonance. And being structured through resonance means as long as there's something unresolved in me, an energetic pattern unresolved, I set up a literal, measurable, high energy wave that invites somebody in to play that out with me. Any unconscious dynamic you refuse to come into relationship with, conscious relationship with, will run your life. And you remember one of my favorite sayings, Carl Jung, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Now that's an identical saying to what Yeshua said. The words are different, but it's identical. Listen to it. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Now listen to Yeshua. Take care of the heart. The light of the body is the eye. Therefore, when thine eye is single, thy whole body is also full of light. But when thine eye is evil, remember that just means off the target. The body is full of darkness. Take heed, therefore, that the light which is in you be not darkness. Now, you listen to that in the way that comes out of the Greek's mouth, and you say, well, that's silly. How can light be darkness? Well, let's translate that properly into English from the Aramaic. Perception is the light or the guide for your earthly life. Your perception is meant to be fueled by life, by light. If it is fueled by darkness, then the light for your earthly life, the guide you follow, perception, is darkness. That's what he was talking about. He goes on to say, if thy whole body therefore be full of light, having no part dark, in other words, you've cleaned out, you've faced every power person dynamic, you've faced every hostility and fear in you, then he says the whole of your body shall be filled with light. And when the bright shining of just like as the bright shining of a candle gives light. As he spoke, a certain Pharisee besought him to dine, and he went in and he sat down to eat. And the Pharisee saw it and he marveled that he didn't first wash his hands before dinner. And Yeshua said to him, and this is such an important key because this is the crux of the work of this man. He was not a theologian. He was a psychologist teaching people how to heal themselves. So what does he say to this prophet Pharisee that's like, oh, you didn't wash your hands? He says, you Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but your inward parts, that is your heart, your unconscious, is full of, and the words are kind of antiquated, but your inward parts are full of ravening and wickedness. In other words, your unconscious, the carbon-based memory, is filled with hostility and fear. Another interesting quote from Carl Jung at this point. He says, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to keep from facing their own souls. Think about that. People will do anything, he says, no matter how absurd, to keep from facing their own souls. If your own unconscious, unowned thought becomes the guide, the light, the perceptual construct that tells you to open your mouth and do a behavior, then your own darkness will destroy you. That's the bottom line of that whole process. And those unowned, unconscious, darkened thoughts, which are now guiding you to speak, will make enemies out of those who are not enemies. Those darkened thoughts will destroy your body, your mind, your relationships, and your life. What did Yeshua say? I come to bring you life. That's it. No, he never said, I got some great dogma for you. I've got a doctrine that, man, if you live by this one, it's going to be so great. He didn't say that. He said, if the light for you is darkness, how deep will your darkness become? And are you doing absurd things in order not to face that in yourself? Remember, in this work, we've developed a test. Now, this is a pretty tricky one. It's a really tough test to apply, but with a little bit of practice, you can do it. How do you tell whether or not something you're feeling is yours or not? Are you feeling it? Now you know whose it is. Oh, no, but wait a minute. I only feel that when Bill's around. Yeah? Well, then you should send a big thank you note to Bill, because Bill is giving you the gift of showing you the hidden part of your own mind that you don't want to feel, that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to deal with. Thank Bill. He's a gift in your life. William James, who's considered to be the father of modern psychology, said, 3 things. If you're going to live a human life, 3 things are important. Number 1 is kindness. Number 2 is kindness. Number 3 is kindness. That person is functioning as a human being. The person who opens their mouths with hostility and fear toward themselves or another, the light, the guide for their earthly life is their own darkness, and they are in self-destruct mode, even though it may seem like they're puking all over everybody else. So if the power person dynamic that we're talking about, if that makes sense to you, is coming from within your own mind, who the heck, go back and look at your list, who the heck are you trying to give advice to? Well, it looks like it's Bill and Harry and Mary and Hortense. The truth is, the hostility and fear-based perception of Bill and Harry and Mary and Hortense are all products of my own perceptual mind, all products of my own darkness. So is there a pattern in your advice? Do you know why? Because that advice is for you. It's not for them. You see, but wait a minute. If I have to apply my advice to everybody who's ever offended me, God, it'll never be over. This is going to be unending. Like, yep. At first, it will seem like, it's the impossible dream. Like it's a task that can never be done. But it's a task that you work at and you do on a daily basis. Well, but Michael, I thought I'd just be able to tap into this work and then everything would be okay in my life. Yeah, well, good luck. Not the way it works. God, Michael, I mean, I look at all the people who offended me, all the advice. What do I need to learn? You need to learn to live from being instead of from the non-being mind, the generational patterns. But Michael, well, notice that you bathe every day. And if you don't bathe every day, like, if you decide, oh, I'm going to let 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 days go, notice that life gets pretty stinky if you don't bathe your body. Well, I'd offer, if you've never washed your mind, that's why there's such a stench in your life. And you're going to have to acquire the habit of. Literally, in the same way that you wash your armpits, you wash the armpits of your mind. Yes, every day for the rest of your life, just like you're going to wash your body every day for the rest of your life. When you're in upset, when you're in some form of hostility or fear, your message to them, those people on your list, that first list, the ones who offend you, your message to them is a message to an image generated by your own brain, and it details a part of your mind in need of healing. How do I know it's a part of your mind in need of healing? Because you're the one that's feeling the pain. And the healing message you're trying to get to yourself is projected into your brain's image of them because you've denied and dissociated and suppressed your pain. You've hidden it from yourself. And a person who lives in that codependent state hallucinates a whole world to get the message close enough to hear, this message is for me and it's about me. And the ability to receive that message is a constitutional growth. If you spent years, decades, talking after a conflict, talking in your mind to yourself about what those people have done and how those people are the problem, and if only they would change, you're going to have to spend as many years having conversations about yourself and how you're going to have to change. And as you start to follow the advice you have for everyone else, you will notice that you become an absolute expert at giving. We're looking to support you in becoming an expert. It's an interesting quote from a man named W.H. Murray, and he says this: until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness, pardon me. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then all providence moves too. All sorts of things occur that otherwise would never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues forth from decisions, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidences, meetings, and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come their way. I have learned deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. W.H. Murray. Make a commitment to do your work. A half-baked commitment will not do. It requires literally integrating the tools and using them on a daily basis. Now, if you would, that deals with column 1. Let's look at column 2. Take a look at what you've accused others of, and then ask yourself the question, do I do that and call it something different? You know, if the power person yelled at you, it was abuse. But if that power person dynamic is in your mind and you turn around and yell at your children, you're only trying to raise them properly. Your mind tells you a lie. Now the lie has become the truth. What is it in your life that you need to become aware of? And it will always be languaged as a blame thought about someone else. What is it that you need to own and start doing? What is it you need to own and stop doing? Your advice to them is on one list, and what you need to look at is in the other. And then we have an assignment for you. And the assignment is take each of those people, and I'm really serious about extending that list out. Go over your whole life, that everybody that you've ever had any form of upset toward, and do this exercise. Give them the advice that your mind has for them. And then sit down and write each codependent a letter explaining to them how you're going to follow your own advice. Finish that letter, put an address and a stamp on it, and mail it. And the degree to which you are now holding your breath is the degree to which you've been living in denial when you think of actually sending those letters. No, you don't need to send them, burn them, whatever. But really detail how you're going to start to follow every piece of advice. Every piece of advice you've ever given to someone who you see as a body, seeing as how you live in a world where the truth is bodies don't exist, then obviously every body you've ever given advice to has to be coming from your own mind. It has to be about you. And you watch how many people start out with the presumption that, of course, I'm perfect. This is all somebody else's fault. And what I'm going to do at this moment is just go to the lines, and we've covered quite a bit, and it's a quarter to the hour. And so if you have a thought or a question for us, I'm going to just invite you to push the call button. Share with us what your question is, what your thoughts are, what's going on in your world. And so remember that there's a call button there. If you're in the app, you push the call button. It'll open a little window. It'll ask you to put a check mark in one or two places, and then it will light up the grayed out call button. You hit that one. That will put a hand up in the control panel, and we'll get to have a conversation, and we'll ask the, now's the moment to do it. And we have no callers, no one with a hand up, so we'll just carry on with these principles. So the next thing I want to look at, and basically what we're doing with these two shows, or yesterday, today, and we may go on, I don't know how many more shows we'll do, but we're covering the whole codependence, the core of the codependence workshop, codependence to interdependence. So how does codependence work? when we're confronted by someone who has greater control over lives than we do, what tends to happen is we tend to give up the experience of ourselves, the truth of who we are as love, in exchange for another being, a false image in our minds based on the way we perceived our power person's needs. It's an old saying that says, the child is the father to the man. Carl Jung, one of his brilliant insights, is one of the greatest burdens that any human being has to carry is the unlived life of their parent. We're meant to experience life and feel out of being and a connection to love. If someone modeled not living that, now in today's world, with all the hostility, the fear, the divorce rate, the poverty rate, the starvation rate, the child abuse rate, the conflict, how many people were raised in that environment? Jean and I were at a large department store back a few years ago, and we came up to the cash register with our purchases, and there was a woman in front of us with a little boy, probably 2.5, in her shopping cart. He's sitting in the cart, and he wants some grapes, and he kicks up a big fuss about wanting grapes, crying, screaming. And this woman went on to the end of the checkout line to quell the noise from her son, and allowed us to go through and check out first. So as Jeannie's checking out, I went ahead to get the car and pulled up to the front door of the store. And Jeannie got in the car, and she was, I don't remember for sure if she was in tears, but she was close to it. And she shared that this mother had, Jeannie had come to the door, and the mother came out with this child afterwards. She went, after Jeannie checked out, she went back in line, checked out. And as they were walking by her, was she standing at the door of the store waiting for me to pull up. She hears this little kid, and it's just like, how bizarre is it that a child would even know, 2.5, would even know how to say these words? But the child's in tears and says to its mother, Mom, don't beat me. I love you. And it's like, talk about jaw dropping. How insane. Now, of course, there are circles in this culture that will say, well, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. And because of the hostility and fear of their generations, they think that the rod means something you beat somebody with. The rod and the staff were to comfort, were support items. They weren't for beating little kids. But there's a whole cultural belief that if you don't hit your kids, there's something wrong with you. There, I would offer, is no child in the creation that has ever deserved to be hit for anything. No child ever. But parents become codependent with their children. All too often, if that was what was modeled, what does codependence with the child look like? Well, think back. If you were the child, was your parent ever in some form of upset and try to convince you that it was your fault? That's codependence with one's own child. And sadly, it's almost universal. These past generations set an example of how life should operate, and few ever rise above the emotionally painful dynamics of those generational patterns. So, recognizing that there's no future in the past, that playing out those things will never reward you, then that has to be given up. There is a self that is formed in the mind. It is nothing but an image in the mind. It is a false self, and it's rooted in the energetic dynamic of trauma. This is the self that 2,000 years ago, and this is the real work of Yeshua. This is what Yeshua is talking about. This is the self that he said, in order for you, being, life, to live through this form, you, non-being self, false image in mind based in power person dynamics, has to die. It has to be removed. This is the work of Yeshua. And bless those who bought into his suffering, took care of it all for you. It's the biggest lie ever told. And you'll remember they warned in the scriptures, when you make a lie the truth, you're in trouble. Listen to him when he says, why do you not do what I tell you to do? Oh, but didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we do all these wonderful things? And he says, get out of here. I gave you a work to do and you didn't do it. So to the root of this false self, which will tend to constitute the unconscious that runs us, is the unresolved generational traumas absorbed from the power person who was not in a state of being during any interaction, any particular interaction. And then there is the moment at which the child breaks with the awareness of itself as love. This too is a generational pattern. And the rage of that moment is beyond comprehension. The rage at having had to give up, be forced by an insane world to give up the truth of being, to buy into this multi-generational patterned non-being self that has as its root rage and or guilt. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to keep from having to face that. But if you never face that, then everything's an effort at recovering, but it's a self that's based in falsity that's attempting to do the recovery. So a power person, by definition, was not in being. You know, I think of this woman. She's got this little tuna, and I mean, the kid wants a grape. You know, what's the big deal? Give the kid a grape. Oh, but if you give in, well, I'll tell you what. If you beat that child, you're creating for yourself a monster that will come back to bite you. I would offer these are the dynamics that are at the root of war. These are the dynamics that must be addressed in order for that level of unconscious rage to be removed from physiology. Because as long as that level is, or pardon me, that rage is in physiology, that structure is going to find a perceptual construct in which to project that rage. So each traumatic interaction sets into the mind a series of false trauma-based ideas, which then becomes the identity that we buy for ourselves, and more so, what we feel from. People, gobble down the antidepressants. Oh, then I don't have to feel. Excuse me. You're only feeling what's there. The antidepressant is not going to rid you of what's there. Only doing your work will. So if there's a series of false traumatic based ideas or interactions that you identify with, then life's going to feel like hell. And it will seem permanent. There will be stages in doing this work where you'll go, but this is just never going to end. And that's not true. If you have no tools, yeah, it's going to be endless. But being is the only thing that is truly permanent. Being, the active presence of love, your created essence, is life. And you need to be moving through your own cellular structure and originating the creative process from that state of being, not replicating what's stored in the instrument from the past. This false self, the one that Yeshua said has to die, feeds on trauma and rage. It needs trauma to live. And once the rage and fear are in there, then it's a self-creating cycle. It's a cycle that takes on a creative flow of its own. And the original rage is it having been pulled out of being, knowing yourself as conscious, active, present love, and having to give up the direct experience of yourself as love in order to survive. That needs to be faced. And the original guilt that went hand in hand with that. Because, of course, if you're the reason your power person was in all this pain, there must be something pretty bad about you. And this is a dynamic that happened so early that it's absolutely unconscious. And it's the source of all of our offenses and defenses. Remember, I told you about the woman I was speaking with this morning. Her daughter was, I think it was her 23rd birthday. So she's had this child 23 years. A birthday celebration, wonderful time. The next day, up comes all this pain. And did I do it right? And, why did I really give my daughter enough love? All these questions come. And when she takes the tools and she sits and gets quiet, she has a memory of being 3. And being in that pain of not being good enough. The message given by the power person. You're broken. There's something wrong with you. And that message must be embraced if we're ever going to heal. And the purpose of these tools is to bring healing to that arena in each and every one of us, and literally to create a community. Remember, the original words, the kingdom of heaven, had nothing to do with someplace off in the sky. In Aramaic, the words mean the community of love. That's exactly what we're working to develop here, a true community of people who are willing to face everything, to discipline themselves and enter the practice of being in that space of conscious, active, present love, and creating a community of support for the healing of these insane dynamics.